For many first-century Romans, he was the emperor Rome never had. His name was Germanicus Julius Caesar, one of the most important generals in the history of the Roman Empire, considered the ideal heir. Germanicus won the hearts of the Roman people and his soldiers, even being compared to Alexander the Great. However, what few know is that Germanicus was almost killed by his own soldiers who rebelled against him. Let's learn more about this general's history. Germanicus was born into a prominent family on May 24th, 15 BC. He was the grandson of Rome's first emperor, Augustus, and one of Rome's greatest generals, Mark Antony. His parents were Nero Claudius Drusus and Antonia Minor, the daughter of Mark Antony. Germanicus belonged to the Julio-Claudian dynasty, one of the most prestigious lineages in ancient Rome. His personal name is actually unknown, but the agnomen Germanicus was given to him in honor of the victories his father achieved in Germania. This title became a mark of prestige that Germanicus would carry throughout his life. In 9 BC, a tragic event occurred when his father, Drusus, fell from his horse while returning from a mission at the Elbe. His uncle Tiberius joined him, but despite surviving the initial accident, a severe infection took Drusus's life a month later. His body was brought back to Rome, but in the fields of Moguntiacum, the legionaries erected a monument that still stands today, testifying to their lasting loyalty to the general. Before departing, Drusus wrote a letter to Tiberius, expressing concerns about how Augustus was governing Rome, even discussing the idea of restoring the Republic. Imagine what was going through the mind of the young Germanicus, only 6 years old, when he learned that his father would not be returning home. In honor of Drusus, the Roman Senate built an arch on the Via Appia with the letters D Germ, representing his conquests at the Elbe and his courage as a general. They also passed the title Germanicus to his son, a special title that would echo through time, used by many important members of the Julio-Claudian family, including Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. The death of Drusus not only meant the loss of a father, but also marked the beginning of a difficult journey for the young Germanicus, who, as the eldest son, became the head of his family. A few years later, in 4 AD, the death of Gaius Caesar, Augustus's grandson and a potential successor, from a battle wound, set off a series of events that would change the course of imperial history. Faced with this power vacuum, Augustus considered Germanicus as a possible alternative, as he was about 18 years old at the time. However, the influence of Livia Drusilla, Augustus's wife, convinced him to consider Tiberius, his stepson, as a wiser choice. Thus, on June 26th, 4 AD, Tiberius was adopted, marking the beginning of a new phase in the imperial succession. There was a special condition. Tiberius had to adopt Germanicus as well, ensuring that he would be next in line. This adoption not only altered the course of his lineage, but also transferred him from the Claudian dynasty to the Julian dynasty. In accordance with Roman naming traditions, he assumed the name Julius Caesar while retaining his agnomen, becoming Germanicus Julius Caesar. Thus, although Augustus was not his biological grandfather, Tiberius's adoption made Germanicus the grandson of Augustus. To further strengthen family ties, Augustus arranged for Germanicus to marry his granddaughter Agrippina, and later they would become the parents of 9 children. 2 years after his adoption, Germanicus was appointed quaestor at the age of 21, surprising Roman society as this was 4 years earlier than permitted by law. In the same year, he was sent to Illyria to assist Tiberius in suppressing the Pannonian and Dalmatian revolts. Germanicus's mission was not only a test of his military skills, but also an opportunity to demonstrate his strength and the resolve of the empire. With a diverse army of recruited citizens and former slaves, he joined Tiberius in Illyria, where the Romans faced challenges in the mountainous terrain where the rebels had taken refuge. The difficult terrain presented a challenge for the Romans. The rebels, skilled in attacks from high fortresses, forced Tiberius to innovate by dividing his army into smaller detachments. He employed a war of attrition against the insurgents, a tactic requiring patience and precision. In this context, Germanicus's strategy did not go unnoticed. His detachments acted against the rebel tribes, achieving several victories. Meanwhile, the Romans implemented a scorched earth policy, depriving the rebels of resources and undermining their resistance. In 8 AD, there was a twist when Bato, the Brutian commander, betrayed his leader and handed him over to the Romans in exchange for a pardon. However, this truce was short-lived, as Bato was soon defeated and executed by his former ally. These events left the Pannonians in disarray and opened the way for the Romans to subdue the region with little resistance, adding 8 cohorts of auxiliaries to the Roman ranks as a valuable bonus. After winning the war in Illyria, Germanicus returned to Rome in 9 AD and was treated with great acclaim, receiving a kind of medal of honor called Ornamenta Triumphalia. He also earned the special title of Praetor, which not only allowed him to run for consul ahead of time, but also permitted him to speak in the Roman Senate immediately after the consuls, showing that he was becoming increasingly influential. During his consulship, Germanicus not only advocated for the accused in courts, but also organized the Ludi Martialis, including grand events such as the release of 200 lions in the Circus Maximus. This combination of judicial skills and spectacular events solidified his position as an admired figure in Rome. That same year, all of Rome was shaken by the news of the disaster at the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, where 3 Roman legions commanded by Varus were annihilated by a coalition of Germanic tribes led by Arminius. At this moment, Augustus faced a dilemma: the need for more troops to sustain his military campaigns. This led to the adoption of compulsory conscription, a highly unpopular measure that reflected the urgency of recruiting more soldiers. The shortage of volunteers led to extreme actions, such as the state purchasing slaves, who were then freed and turned into soldiers. To contain the imminent threat posed by Arminius and the Germanic tribes, Tiberius was quickly dispatched to the Rhine frontier, and all available troops were summoned from other provinces to reinforce the army. However, curiously, this much-feared Germanic invasion of Roman territories never materialized. This was because Arminius's warriors followed the historical practice of many tribal armies. They dispersed and returned to their lands to celebrate the glory they had won. Over time, Tiberius strengthened the region by conducting punitive expeditions against the Germanic tribes, gradually restoring Roman reputation. The shaken confidence following Varus's defeat began to recover. In 11 AD, Germanicus, now proconsul, was sent with Tiberius to repair the damage caused by the disaster. Germanicus, now about 27 years old, had gained much experience during the rebellion of the Pannonian tribes. According to Tacitus, when Germanicus visited the battlefield at Teutoburg, he ordered the collection of the soldiers' remains and had them buried in proper graves. as their bodies had been left to rot on the battlefield. After honoring the fallen soldiers in the Teutoburg forest with a proper burial, Germanicus intensified his pursuit of Arminius. Arminius took advantage of the difficult terrain, attacking the Romans in the marshy forest, but they managed to establish a defensive camp after overcoming the challenges of the mud. In 14 AD, after assuming the Roman throne, Tiberius increased the military presence on the Germanic frontier by sending 6 legions beyond the Rhine, all led by Germanicus. Like his father before him, Germanicus was very popular and respected by the Roman soldiers. However, the death of Augustus triggered a series of events that shook the army. The legions were accustomed to the figure of the emperor and were now facing uncertainties and dissatisfaction. As a result, some mutinies broke out, fueled by complaints about heavy salary deductions and bribes required to ease the hardships imposed by the centurions. The final straw came in Lower Germania, where the experienced commander Paulina, known for his loyalty to the imperial family, led an unexpected revolt. The 4 legions under his command completely lost discipline, revealing widespread discontent among the soldiers. The centurions, the initial target of the revolt, were imprisoned and flogged, marking a period of turmoil within the Roman ranks. While Germanicus was overseeing tax collection in Gaul, news of the revolt called him back urgently. When Germanicus arrived at the army camp, he did not receive a warm welcome. The soldiers were discontented and expressed their displeasure in unusual ways. They complained to Germanicus about delayed discharges and poor pay, with some even suggesting the idea of making Germanicus emperor instead of Tiberius. At this moment, Germanicus dramatically attempted to restore order by threatening to take his own life, even drawing his sword in front of the soldiers. However,